So for our film, we had to think about props and costume. The costume was really quite simple, really. We had all the mafia people wear suits, ties, and jackets, and we had the detective wear a waistcoat, white shirt, and trousers and suspenders as well. It was more the ladies we had to look at for any costumes, because everybody was pretty much uniform, and the doctor. The doctor was unique amongst the boys, as he wasn't mafia, he wasn't detective, he was a doctor, so he wore tweed. So we put him in tweed type Scottish clothing, which made him seem like this doctor. We also suggested him wearing a beard or some form of facial hair. However, that wasn't very popular with him. He didn't like the idea of mutton chops, so eventually we had to drop the idea. Although if we did make this into a full film, we'd probably force him to wear them eventually. So for the bodyguards and the mafia all wore suits, jackets, and ties. Detective wore his waistcoat and white shirt, and the doctor wore tweed. The ladies had different sets of outfits, and they all distinguished from each other. So we start with Casey Elder, the mysterious woman, who wore a black dress, a large fur coat, red lipstick, to show that she is part of the mafia. She is someone important in the mafia, and she's definitely different from the other two girls from what they wear. So she's wearing this black dress, coat, and so on, and that shows her importance and the fact that she's going to go in there and do business with a detective, which she completely rubs him into the dirt.
What was her name again? Oh, Elizabeth. Shame what happened to her.
And manipulates him. If you look at the rough edit, you'll see the full conversation between them.
Good.
You still better leave.
Michael Johnson, born in 1868.
Verity wore the opposite. She was wearing a bright dress, boots, and she was wearing things that made her seem different. Like, she was part of the mafia. She's been put into this mafia, but she was different somehow, and that's what we wanted to show in the play. That she wasn't this dark-hearted, evil person, which the mysterious woman is. She was someone else, and she didn't want to be associated with this gang. And lastly, we had to dress up Tamzine, who played Elizabeth, I suppose the ghost, the past of the main character's wife. Costume with her was just poor American woman, so we were looking at for the past scenes, it was a flowery dress and boots and so on. But when we did the photo shoot for everyday clothing, if you like, but when we did the photo shoot for the picture that Michael has on his desk, it's just plain simple clothing, nothing fancy, nothing that will tell her she's part of the mafia. It's just something really simple, really, really basic, just to show that she's just this poor American woman. There's also a cut scene in our play where we would introduce soldiers as part of the flashback. However, due to we thought the film was meant to be 5 minutes long, it turned out to be 2 minutes long, so we decided to cut that out entirely and put in sound effects to signify the fact he was in the army, in the military, a soldier, fighting with the Americans. But we were going to have a soldier scene, and we actually made some custom rifles to put into the film as well, which was quite fun to make. I made about 7 hours per rifle. But we did make them for that scene, which didn't come to fruition, unfortunately. But the costumes they were going to be wearing were getting American costumes is quite hard. So they'd be wearing British Army World War II uniforms, but I suppose in this context it doesn't matter. We can bring a city to life 30 years before it even existed. I'm sure we can put people in different uniforms, so that was actually a possibility. Now it would be done in first person, like the fight scene in our first edit. For props, it was really quite basic with props. It was just guns. We had pistols, and all the sets had littered bits of paper, and we had a picture of the deceased wife, books, and drink. Obviously, to show that he's in an office. That was his life, basically, and also he's an alcoholic, probably because of his past. And as a film noir, we were going to use cigarettes as well. However, we were denied the use of those because of rules and regulations, which is a shame because it would have added to the atmosphere. But we had these props, and it's really quite basic, simple, nothing fancy. They were just used.